This smile just
Why are you smiling?
because I want to look good when
I
it
send the
starts.
check.
I know.
Okay. Mm,
Hi guys, good afternoon. How are you all doing in this on this hot day? Um, I must say, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for following for the past 2 weeks. This is our third episode, and I must say the feedback is very good. But even more so, besides the feedback, it's what I intend to bring to this platform. The conversations that we don't usually have publicly, but the conversation we have behind the scenes amongst ourselves within our friends group, within our peers at home. These are the conversations we have. They're a bit thought provoking to a certain extent, if you would call it that, or if you would refer to it as that rather. But I really believe it's necessary, and especially with regards to the platform that I am interested in. I have a curiosity to understand, how societies really function. How do we cope? What causes the breakdown in society, and what needs to happen in order to bridge the gaps and enhance moving forward. Not just to realize and fix it, but how do we do better moving forward in a way whereby for it to be done in a way whereby not only us today will benefit, but our children's generation will benefit in time to come. So that's the intent in having this conversation. And I personally believe before we can even make a change or talk about, oh, we need to fix things, we need to first discuss what the problems are, what the issues are, in order to know how to move forward. Yeah. So before I dive in, I must just pause a little bit. For persons who've been following me for the past I would say for the past week and a half, you've been seeing I've been posting blue hearts, blue hearts, blue hearts, and Craig Williams is who I've been speaking about. For persons in St. Maarten, persons who are following me generally on Facebook, who are my friends on Facebook, you will notice I've been speaking about Craig. Everyone has been sharing. And I really want right now, Craig is not doing well. And people may be thinking about who Craig is, right? Craig is someone who is very known on St. Maarten. He he's a friend to everybody, a friend to everyone, a friend to me. Craig and I have known each other. We have been friends for over 20 years. And right now, I just really want to, just take a moment to highlight him, to let him know that he's not alone. He's not alone in this. And to let Cassie, his mother, and the entire family know that they are not alone. There's only so much we can do as individuals, and I want you to know, Craig, I want you to know, Cassie, your mother, your entire family, I really want you to know on behalf of the entire community. I'm not speaking on behalf of myself, but I'm speaking on behalf of every single person, that we love you, we care about you, and we are rallying for you every step of the way. Whatever we can do, whatever it's in our powers, we will do that. Okay. So thank you, Cassie. Thank you to the entire community for all of your prayers constantly, for gathering. We had like over 200 persons a few nights ago gathering for with prayers for Craig on by Carrefour supermarket on the Bush Road. All right. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you. And Craig, we lift you up. We hold you strong. Yeah. So and we are praying for you continuously. Continuously. Okay. So right now, back to gaffing, back to having this gaff about education and how do we move forward, especially after COVID, you know? I haven't been in a physical classroom. I don't want to say it. It's about 17 years. I cannot believe it's been 17 years since I graduated high school. Ridiculous. Crazy, right? But the closest I would say I've experienced a shift in my education as a child, right? I came to St. Maarten. I left Guyana, where I was born, When I was 9 years old, I went to a public school, and I had I would say a normal childhood. And the moment I came to St. Maarten, I couldn't go to public school. I couldn't go to school. Why? Because there was this thing they called papers that I didn't have. So my mother, well, my parents at the time, but my mother specifically at the time, she owned a sewing shop. And when I think back about it, she was so young. My parents were so young, in their 30s, early 31, 32. That's the age they were. But the dedication they put in, because even though we could not have attended public school, my parents decided to give up my mother's sewing shop. My uncle built benches, and they homeschooled us. So my mother went to the bookstore opposite Penny's in Back Street, bought books, and every single day we were taught. My father was the maths teacher, and my mother did everything else. And boy, did that come with some licks. So for me, that was the repositioning for me. And when it comes to parents involvement in their child's life, and this is what you will hear specifically from educators in this conversation, this Gyhaff today. We need to have more parents present and more involved in children's life, in their children's life. With me, throughout our education in school, our parents, primarily our mother, was always there. I mean, I did CXC. And when I'm studying, mommy would come on the table, stay up with me all hours, and she would fall asleep. And when I said, mommy, go to bed, no, I'm just keeping you company. When we go home with our homework and we didn't understand it, she would teach it to us. And if she didn't understand it, you know what she did? She would go to our school, meet with our teachers, let the teachers teach it to her, and then she comes home and teach it to us. That's a dedication I know as a parent. All right. So this is my personal experience. So when COVID happened, I know there are so many parents, educators who weren't even prepared for the shift. I wasn't prepared for the shift. All right. And so many persons around the sector. So here today, if you are following, you will notice we have three dynamic persons who will be joining this conversation. The first person is Alicia Lake. I've known Alicia ever since we were in high school. And Ms. Van Putten, Corinne Van Putten, was one of my former English teachers in St. Maarten Academy. And Kevin Charles is a very good friend. So first and foremost, what I will do is I will introduce Alicia.
A pleasant good evening, good afternoon to everyone. Keoma, thank you once again for inviting me here to speak based on my experience as an educator. Again, my name is Alicia Lake, and I have been an educator for the past 6 years, 6 long years. And currently I am assigned at the Mary Genevieve the Weaver School. Since I've started teaching, I've taught at the Charles Lepel School, the Leonard Connor School, the Prince William Alexander School, and now I am at Mary Genevieve the Weaver School. So that's me in a nutshell. Passionate about education, passionate about community service. I'm a part of Rotary Sunset, as most persons know. So I'm indeed happy to be here to talk about education. Very important.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alicia, for that introduction. You will hear so much more from Alicia just now as she shared her experience for the past 6 years within the public education field. So trust me, it's going to be an epic conversation. So the next person is Kevin. I let me mention Kevin Charles and I met in 2013. We were Caribbean youth leaders who were selected by UNESCO, UNICEF and flown to Jamaica to discuss the issues of sustainable development throughout the Caribbean SIDS. SID stands for Small Island Development States. Yeah, so Kevin.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Keoma, for inviting me to this wonderful session this afternoon. So I'm the program manager at the Academy of Higher Education. And what we do is that we offer a combination of face-to-face and online class. So my specialization is in instructional design. So my goal as an educator is always to ensure that learning is happening, all right, whether it's in the traditional classroom or in the authentic environment. My goal, once again, is always to ensure that learning is happening. And I have been an instructional designer relatively between 3 years, but I have been teaching for a period of 8 years. So that's basically me in a nutshell. And as we go on, you will learn a little more about me. Thank you so much, Keoma.
Pleasure, Kevin. Pleasure, Kevin. Next person up is Ms. Van Putten, Corinne Van Putten, as I mentioned, one of my former high school teachers. And before we get onto the live, Elisa said, can you imagine we're here? We're here with one of our high school teachers. And Ms. Van Putten is like, okay, y'all are making me feel old. But it goes to show you, I would say this to Ms. Van Putten and to even all educators, it goes to show you that this is the rewards you get when you're an educator. You instill, and I think it's a sense of pride Ms. Van Putten would feel to know that here it is now, you can now have a conversation with your former students. So thank you very much for this. And Ms. Van Putten?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Keoma. I'm coming in okay, right? First of all, I just want to thank you, Keoma, for this opportunity. As Keoma keeps referring to me as Ms. Van Putten, I don't want there to be any confusion. When you see Lejuez written there, she knew me before I was a married woman, so I'm just saying that. That being said, this is my 27th year in the field of education. I started off at St. Maarten Academy and I left there a few years back. Right now, I work full-time at the Sundial School as the career guidance counselor, school coach with a focus on staff relations. And of course, I always go back to my roots, which is English teaching. So, and I dabble in the union, the teachers union a little bit. And I have a wide array of interests that I'm not going to get into, but from the time we start talking about education, Keoma knows this, Alicia maybe a little bit, but people know I tend to have some very strong views on what I think education should look like. So that's me in a nutshell.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. I just realized I was muted. So thank you very much, Ms. Van Putten, for that intro. And thank you for Kevin as well, Alicia. So we all know, we were just living our lives regularly, teachers, students, parents, and then out of nowhere, boom, COVID happens. All of a sudden, there were no classroom teachings anymore. Students were at home. Teachers had to learn how to operate Zoom. Some teachers never heard of Zoom. So before we even dab into exactly what that transition was, that instant, that abrupt transition was in the heights of COVID, let's just back up a little bit, just to see what was happening before COVID. What was the state of education before COVID? So we can basically understand what the transition was. So who would like to go? I would say Alicia, based from a public education platform. What was it like before COVID on a day-to-day basis? And some of the challenges you faced as well.
Well, on a day-to-day basis, of course, students came to school physically. And as a public school educator, what some of my challenges were in terms of integrating technology into the classroom was the lack of resources. Now, this is something that we all have been, every educator have been facing. But for me, let's date back to why I became a teacher. My intention was actually to be an information technology teacher. That was my passion. But once I completed University of St. Maarten, FBE came into play, and with FBE, technology was integrated into the classroom, and no longer was there a classroom itself assigned for computer classes. So that was my way of, still giving back and becoming an educator and trying to integrate technology into the classroom. But again, lack of resources. You know, we've been asking for sponsorship, and that too was a challenge. So, you know, when it came to COVID, and, you know, and the fact that we were faced with teaching virtually, that was a struggle for me in terms of my transition, because that week when school closed, I was actually sent home because I had a little, a little cough. But I still came to school that day, and, you know, my manager, of course, you know, taking precautions, she was like, you know, Miss Lake, what's going on with you? I see you have a little cough there. And I told her, well, I got wet. And that was the reason why I had the cough. But when I went home, I got a call and stated virtually. That was a struggle for me in terms of my transition, because that week when school closed, I was actually sent home because I had a little, a little cough. So I'm getting a feedback from you, Keoma, if you're listening somewhere else.
Oh, you can hear me? You getting the feedback?
Yes, so just mute.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so in order for me to prepare my students, they saw me one day and the next day they didn't see me. So there was no interaction with the children as to what we were about to face, you know. So what happened is I was supposed to prepare my schoolwork from home and send it to my manager and have her copy it, because I already knew that my children were not capable. Most of them were not capable to transition virtually, because I knew the lack of devices, electronic devices, and even internet access at home. So I did my part in actually getting worksheets together and, you know, and trying to prepare my students for what was to come. And, you know, the parents were already scared, and they had a fear in them. So when I prepared all the work, out of my 25 students, only 2 parents came to collect the work, because it was already, there was a fear already in them. And, you know, so that was what I was facing up until school closed. So I know that you're going to take this conversation a bit further. So I'll stop there and let you know that was my, you know, my experience up until COVID struck us.
Okay, very well, Alicia. For persons who do not know, you mentioned FBE. What does FBE stands for? Just so we can sensitize our viewers.
Foundation-based education.
And what exactly is that, if you don't mind explaining, just briefly?
So foundation-based education is a curriculum that we have been using. I believe maybe Ms. Van Putten can correct me. I'm not too sure with the date that we started, but basically foundation-based education is a cycle 1 and cycle 2 that the primary schools, that's what we are guided by in order to teach our students.
Okay, very good. Ms. Van Putten, based on what Alicia said, I know you also work in the public school system. Well, how was your transition? What was it like for you?
Well, just a little bit of a correction. As public school, all of the school boards that I work for, they are subsidized by government. They wouldn't consider themselves to be public schools, I don't think. However, right before COVID-19 and the shutdown, the school I work with specifically, and that's where I'm going to talk, the way I'm talking from, they were already beginning the slow transition into technology, into integrating internet into the classroom. We were discussing each student having a tablet or an iPad. However, things were moving along very, very slowly. And what COVID-19 did was speed up the process a little bit. So whereas we should have been slowly transitioning into online learning, we were essentially shoved into it, and we ourselves, the educators and the students, we all had to learn very, very quickly. And when I say quickly, I mean days. We all had to learn this new platform of teaching. Students had to be able to get their work done on this new platform, and we essentially had to go from there. And then there was a discussion of grading. How does this term count for students? There were a number of issues that this pandemic brought about. It highlighted some issues that were already on the table for discussion, but it essentially shoved us all, I think, into an online platform that a lot of us were unfamiliar with and had maybe minimal experience with. And so we all had to learn very quickly to this new learning. And in addition to that, I also want to add that, we now have to think ahead as to what's going to occur in August. How is this going to change the way that we teach, that we instruct, how students learn come August? Because we still have to keep in mind that although we might be COVID-free, it's still around, and we still have to think about what happens in August when, if school restarts when it's supposed to restart.
Very interesting. Very interesting. You mentioned it was a bit challenging for teachers to transition, but what was that like? Can you just explain to us? Because I really want persons to understand, even though, am I muted still? No, I'm good. I'm good. Sorry about that. I'm just making sure that I'm not muted. Even though sometimes we feel like teachers are superhumans, teachers take time still to transition, and COVID came without warning. And as I mentioned in my caption on Facebook, it met us with some of us with our pants down. So what was that transitioning like for teachers who are accustomed to being in a classroom and now they're on Zoom or the Google Classroom, I think you said as well? What was that like, and what was the reciprocation with students as well, and even with their parents?
Well, school closed on March 18th, which was Wednesday, directly in the middle of the week. On March 19th, Thursday, and March 20th, the Friday, we had to come back to school for trainings in Zoom, in Google Classroom, in Canvas. All of those are online learning platforms that we had been previously unfamiliar with. I must also say that week also we had our exam students were going through mock exams. And so some of us, myself included, we came back the 2 days after school shut down to have the students finish their mock exams, as well as attend training to learn how to put whatever we had left to complete for the school year in Google Classroom. In addition to that, they also had to make sure that the students were added so that they had access to the lessons, and teachers were given a crash course, because that's basically what it was, a crash course in these online platforms. And then the following week, I'm not gonna say Monday, but the following week, we were online and learning continued. So it was a tough transition. It was very, very hard, but essentially whenever you start something, especially when you're thrown into it, you learn very, very quickly, and teachers are no exception. That's why we're so flexible. That's why we learn quickly, so that we know what the goal is, and the goal is to continue learning.
Very well, very well. And I can only imagine, how rugged it was for many teachers, because as we know, teachers are still human beings. So while some adapt quickly, some may be a bit resistant, reluctant too, because some people are just naturally stuck in their ways. And that's how they know. Some people just get up every day and they live everything mundane, So Kevin, your teaching is very different. Your technology is what you do every single day that is incorporated in your teaching. What was that transition like before? What was it like before COVID, and then in the height of COVID? What was that like for you?
So just to add what you just said in terms of course, the transitions for teachers, is that everyone has different learning curves. All right. So while you may have someone that may be able to understand the technology and be able to, of course, gravitate really quickly, you will have other teachers who may take some more time than others. All right. And that's something that we need to know. All right. So as it pertains to your question, Keoma, as you know, the approach that in terms of teaching that we deliver at the Academy of Higher Education is very unorthodox to what is experienced in classrooms throughout the Caribbean. So we utilize a blended learning model. And when I talk about a blended learning model, I'm talking about our classes incorporate both face-to-face and online. So our teachers, our educators would have already been using this type of approach for the past 3 years. And we use a flex model. And when I talk about a flex model, I talk about understanding the learning needs of each student. So we know we would have a class with different types of learners. Therefore, our instructions would be tailored to cater for all the various types of learners. So you may have a day while a student may come into the class, they would of course be assessed first. And based on that assessment, we would know if we need to do direct instruction with that student, or we would need to, of course, put them in a stimulation classroom where, of course, they would engage with particular activities, or they collaborate. And at the end, we come together and we have a discussion. So for us, it was a little more easier than the traditional schools, because of course our students would have been exposed to our learning management system, and some would have been exposed to Google Classroom and Zoom. So students who of course would have been fully traditional, of course that there would have been a little bit challenge there for in terms of in the public and private. But for us, because we utilize blended, it was more easy to transition students fully online because they would have already been exposed to that information and being able to use the technology.
Very good. That's very interesting. I think the approach, is where, should I say, is where where I'm curious to see what will happen now, because you already have that blended platform, and now we were forced to be blended. So I'm curious to see now, what happens as we move forward. And as Ms. Van Putten, Ms. Corinne, Corinne stated, she's smiling. I'm curious to see now that I can say that we are blended. Would you say that we are blended somewhat now? Right? We were forced to do it.
I think it's not so, we are not blended because of course blended must incorporate both face-to-face and online. So now during COVID-19, persons were forced to transition fully online. And when we talk about e-learning, we basically talk about the use of technology to create learning experiences. Because a lot of people say, what is e-learning? You hear virtual classroom, you hear online, but it's really using technology to create learning experiences. And we have to take into consideration the challenges. Not everyone will have the right technology to, of course, have quality online classes. We have to take into consideration, how do we create instructional material for an online audience? We have to take into consideration different learners, because you have what the type of instructions you would use for primary will be different to secondary. And remember, at this stage, they depend heavily on instruction. So they are not independent learners. So those would be some of the challenges that teachers in traditional classrooms will have. And the smaller the age group is, the more difficult it may be to of course, develop instructions. And when I talk about instructions, learning material to cater for their learning, or teaching material to cater for their learning. So there are a lot of challenges. And of course, our traditional teachers would be able to, of course, talk about the challenges they would experience, such as the training. You must have training. And when we talk about training, how do you create engagement and interaction in an online platform? All right. What methods do you need to incorporate? Do you need to use more visual? Do you need to ask more questions? Another set of challenges would be the rules, because of course you may have to set rules for the students when joining the online class. We talk about the infrastructure. Do we have the internet capability to run a quality online school? What is the bandwidth? What is the bandwidth needed to, of course, offer that experience? So being forced into that, of course, teachers were met with challenges, students as well as parents. All right. So of course, we had to be very progressive. Discussion would have had to be met. And again, each island experience would be different. But a suggestion that I would suggest to persons is, of course, acquiring the right data to know what learning needs you need to meet in a online learning environment for your own students. So what we started to do is ask students the correct question Do you have a phone? What is the RAM? What is the speed? Do you have access to internet? Those types of things. Have you ever used Zoom before? So you would know the type of instructions you need to, of course, inform your students before you have that online platform. So let me give the other two teachers that we have with us the opportunity probably to share their challenges transitioning to fully online, because we had challenges as it pertains to the students, parents, and teachers, because anything that is new, you will get resistance.
Mhm.
That's reality, because it's new. It's something that you're not familiar with. You seem so out of touch. All right, so I'll pass it on to you, Keoma.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Everything you mentioned is exactly, what we intend to discuss. We know what it was before, and now COVID bumped us into this new world of, oh my God, what is this? But again, we are resilient people. We, regardless of what disasters, what challenge we face, we always rise. We always learn to swim. But now, the fact that we are swimming, it highlighted issues. And we were discussing yesterday, Elise and I were talking, and Ms. Van Putten and I were talking as well, to some of the issues. It may appear to be so simple, so insignificant, but internet, and Kevin mentioned it just now, internet, because and to be honest, I may sound ignorant. I never actually thought that so many persons, especially in St. Maarten, was without internet, you know? So I would say, I will touch base on an article a friend of mine shared with me today from a young girl in Dominica. But Alicia, I would like for you to tap base on that, please.
Thank you, Keoma. So Keoma sent that article to me, and I could have related to what that individual was saying, because internet on St. Maarten, and I think it's in the Caribbean as well, because Kevin mentioned it. We have an issue with quality internet and affordable internet. And we must realize that most households cannot afford internet based on the packages that our service providers are currently offering. I can speak for myself as an educator. I did not have unlimited internet, because since Irma, my internet company never reached to that level of restoring unlimited internet on the front side of the island. However, I was able to reach out to another company, and it was quite expensive for the startup, for the setup of my unlimited internet. It was quite expensive, hundreds of dollars for me to get unlimited internet. And this is something that I had to do for myself to ensure that I continue my learning, my teaching online. So when it comes to internet access on the island, that is something that we should look into. And the individual who was speaking in that article, she mentioned that we blame government for everything. But I think that it's now that we have to reach out to these internet service providers and have a conversation with them. Teachers, we can start with teachers, have a conversation with them and let them know, hey, our children are at home. A lot of them cannot afford internet. What can you do to help us, to help our future?
Mm-hmm.
These are our future leaders. And I think that these entities and these companies should try their utmost best to find some way to provide affordable internet for persons who cannot afford the current packages that they have at the moment.
I think it's very interesting, and I'm very happy we're just having this conversation, because this conversation, if we all will see, it's highlighting issues that were always there, but they were never exposed, because everyone sees someone with a phone in their hands. Oh, you have a phone, so you think, okay, we're connected. But when the actual need for actual internet to actually be connected, when that need came into place, there were no proper provision made. And then is when you cannot rely on data, So my experience with the internet is, I personally find the companies have different packages, but when I think about persons, especially now, the amount of people who lost their jobs, people are out of work, their children have to go to school. How do you actually maintain that balance for having to pay internet And for persons who don't even have internet, I mean, my internet provider, it takes, I kid you not, like 300 and something US dollars for installation. Then you still have to pay the first fee, the first month internet fee. Then before we had think is it Star Bridge or Starlight or something like that. I love that one because you could plug it out and go anywhere with it. But now you have to even pay for your own router, and the routers come with different prices. So you pay 300 and something dollars for internet installation. You have to pay a monthly, whether it be $63 a month, $93 or 100 and something US dollars per month. And what I find is very interesting, they don't have bundles. So if you have internet maybe at your home, at your office, you could say, okay, you know what, you're already a subscriber to our internet. Let's give you like a discount or something. There is nothing, you have to pay that same subscription fee. So Ms. Van Putten, what was your experience like when it comes to students and their parents' reaction with having to be a part of Zoom every day? And I know Alicia mentioned to me, only 5 persons sometimes will Zoom in, will check in on Zoom because there's no internet. What was your experience like with that, Ms. Van Putten?
Okay, well, there were several issues that came up with the students. And you said it yourself, everyone has a phone. So we naturally make this assumption that everyone has the same internet connections. Everyone knows the language, everyone knows how to function on it. And what we discovered, well, what we had already known is that the language was problematic. It's very easy for students to Snapchat and add filters, etc., etc. But when it came to getting actual work done on your phone, it became a problem. And like you said, data packets are expensive, and some students, the only internet they had were on their parents' phones. Some had actually no internet at home. Some had to share internet access with a sibling or another person in the household. And so what happened is that we also had to report as a school how many students were actually logging into our classes and actually actively working online and actively completing their assignments. And what we discovered was that, let me just give you an example. Out of 11 students, I had 3 who actively were working in Google Classroom. And so to mitigate that, what was done was that packets, like Alicia mentioned, were copied and made. Certain dates were assigned for students and or parents and guardians to come and collect the paperwork. That was done, but still it highlighted a need that we were always cognizant of, but we really, really, really needed it now. And so I know at some point, a couple tablets, meaning 2 or 3 were donated by an organization, I can't remember the name right now, to students who were in need. Our students come to school and we forget the circumstances that a lot of them go home to. Some of them don't have internet access. Some of them, have to share a room with other siblings, having to do work. It's not ideal for some of our students. And all of those are issues outside of whether the internet is reliable or not, whether the internet provider is affordable or not. The main issue was, do all of our students on the island of St. Maarten, do they have access to the internet so they can complete their work? And sadly, the answer to that question was, no, they do not.
So they had no internet to complete their work. So how did they do their work?
Well, they had the help of teachers. So some of the teachers, their mentors, we call them, them as homeroom teachers. They had the information of the parents. So some of them were very accessible. WhatsApp is a feature all of us are using. And those who completed their work, their paperwork, they could send a message to the coordinator or send a message to the mentor saying, this has been completed, and then that would be taken note of, and then arrangements would have to be made during the lockdown. When could this paperwork be submitted? But you knew that this particular child didn't have any internet access, and so you took it a little bit easy and waited until you received the child's work, if you did the work, and and you go from there. One of the things also is that we had to, we're very strict when it comes to deadlines and handing in stuff. We had to report every month how many students were logging into our classroom, how many are actively participating, what are we doing to make contact with students who don't have internet access, what are we doing for students who can do work online. So all of those things had to be taken into consideration. And, it has not been easy. But again, you learn throughout this process. And one of the things that we learn as teachers, I'm an English teacher, that is my first job. And English teachers have a lot of paperwork. And one of the advantages is that we could after we learn how to put the assignment online, the computer can correct it for us. So the paperwork was reduced. And so you had a smaller amount of students who really needed to hand in a paper-based work. And I think at one point when the lockdown was eased up a little bit, we came back to school for those exam students who needed to physically do their exams on the paper. We came back to school, observing safety protocols and all of that stuff, mask sanitizing, and they physically did the paperwork. And the teachers who were there, myself included, we physically marked that paper. So again, sort of like a blended learning kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So we were just dropped into this. We utilized technology for many of us for the first time in the classroom to this extent. So my thing is, where do we go from here? How do we incorporate technology moving forward? What do we do? Because I remember, and I mentioned this when we had a private talk, right? 5 years ago, I was in New York and I attended events that was hosted to recognize Caribbean people in the Brooklyn area. And there was this young guy, I don't know his name, I don't remember his name, but it's this young guy who were doing simple, like you think about it, it's so simple, but still so exceptional. He hosted an after school program, and within his afternoon school program, there were first graders to sixth graders. And what he did there was taught them coding and how to make apps and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh my God, we need this. But then before we can even get there, and this is where these conversations happen. I was having that conversation with Alicia, and she basically put me right down to the basics. Alicia, if you don't mind, there are so many of us who want to say, including myself, we need technology in the classroom. We need to have our curriculum revamped and have how we can code and how we can app, because this is the technology for today. How do we even begin that process? You who are educators every day, how do we begin that process in the classroom?
Well, first and foremost, I think that we need to get back to the basics in terms of how to actually use an electronic device. We think that our students know how to use technology, but they don't. Just taking a phone and, going through apps, that's not how you use, electronic device. I know when I was in school, I was taught how to type. I was taught the different parts of a computer. I was taught how to maneuver through Microsoft Office. And that I was taught that from primary school. Now, what's happening in primary, I can speak for public education. We don't have sufficient electronic devices in the classroom to teach this to our students. So I think going back to the basics of how to actually use technology, because what we faced as well when our children were at home is we realized that our children didn't even know how to turn on a computer. Mm-hmm. They weren't able to do that. So what happened is teachers had to basically guide students through the phone, how to turn on the computer, how to access this program to get their work completed. So I think moving forward, once we get back, because I think we're going to get back into the physical setting. We're not going to stick virtually. We're going to go back into the classrooms. They're going to have a program or a schedule in place to ensure that, it's just a group of students, coming at this time and the other at this time. So that's going to happen. But once they get back in, we need to go back to the basics as to how to use technology properly for education and for their personal use as well. I also think that we need to include or introduce more seminars for teachers, students, and parents. Mm-hmm. because we thought that our parents were able to deal with homeschooling and the way how teachers do it, but we realized that that was not the case for most parents. Parents, you know, if there's work to be done, they're going to say, hey, you need to get your work done. They're going to try and help you. And if you're not getting through, they're going to become frustrated, and the child becomes frustrated and the child shuts down. Now with teachers, we have that skill. We were taught that skill. You know, so we are professionals in how to maneuver the different learning styles of our students. So I think moving forward, that's where we have to go back to basics. We have to bring awareness to parents, teachers. I must say that my public education, they are trying their utmost best to ensure that we have seminars in place for our teachers. Maybe they can do more for parents. I think that is a suggestion that we can bring to public education, but I must say that they're trying their utmost best to include technology into the classrooms. And what I would advise teachers as well, you are getting that opportunity to get all of this knowledge, try and exercise it into the classroom so that you can get comfortable. Like Kevin mentioned, some of them were reluctant. I myself, I must say, because I was so into the whole traditional way of teaching, it was kind of hard for me to maneuver into virtual. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't start teaching virtually the next day, you know, but my school manager gave me a call and say, hello, Alicia, you know, you need to get, you know, you need to do what you need to do to access and to continue the learning process. So I got that pep talk from my school manager and of course other teachers around me, because I know that I didn't want to pressure my students at home because I knew they did not have the internet access. I didn't want to bombard them with work knowing that I know they don't have access to it. Their parents are at home, at work. You know, it's just a phone. You know, there's no computer at home. So when the child gets home, the parent is already tired. You don't want to, I tried not to frustrate my students and my parents because I knew of the situation at home. So I think we need to prepare ourselves. We need to try our utmost best to ensure that home has at least one device, a computer, a desktop or a laptop, not just a phone, but a desktop. I think it is quite important for children to have that to conduct their work other than an iPad, you know, but that's just my experience that I have seen and my opinion or my advice moving forward.
I think to add to this discussion and to even more emphasize even more what you said, I think parents now, I mean, they are dedicated parents, but I think parents now who were again forced in this situation will have an even more, well, I believe, or I would hope rather, that they will have an even more appreciation for teachers and the emphasis that teachers put into their children, the dedication, because when you're outside looking in, you think, it's easy. But now parents were charged to teach, manage their home, manage their expenses, manage COVID, protect their homes. And it's just like when a teacher in a normal setting, teachers have the same responsibility because they're still human beings. And this is what I would want parents to realize and to remember. Teachers have families, they have challenges that they face in their homes, they have financial issues also, they have a full life just like parents do. And again, I really hope parents will be a bit more appreciative to the efforts made by the teachers and to go a step more, a notch forward, to be more dedicated with their children, be more involved, understand more moving forward. But Kevin, because I know technology is your day-to-day, the day-to-day affair, what would you add to this? Kevin, you can hear me?
Yes, I can. So I would continue where Elisa would have left off. And of course, she would have shared some vital information. And of course, we always need to ask the question, what do I need to have an online class? And of course, you must have, of course, the required device to, of course, facilitate that online experience. And you can have the device, but as Ms. Elisa would have made mention, we realize that a lot of the students may know how to send a WhatsApp message. They may know how to go on Facebook, listen to probably their favorite music on YouTube, check an email, but do they really know how to use the device and use it as it pertains to an educational tool? So of course, we need to go back to that place of course, providing the relevant training needed to know how to use the device effectively. Because as Lisa said, we as well would have had to, of course, call our students and guide them on how to use the technology. Simple things like, of course, downloading Zoom. I know a lot of teachers would have, of course, begun using a learning management system such as Google Classroom to facilitate their classes, and of course to facilitate that virtual experience where, of course, just like how we're having a virtual experience here, they may have used Zoom, Emodo, or Google Meet, or even Skype that would, of course, facilitate. So we need to always have the right tools to ensure online. Again, a lot of us talked about the challenge of bandwidth. Bandwidth is something very important that you need to have quality. So even with us, we realize I may have had great bandwidth to facilitate Zoom, but some students, they of course would have had limited internet packages, which of course would have limited the experience. So they would have had distortion, calls dropping, they would have had the issue of reconnecting, all of those little challenges. And of course, some of the teachers, of course, would have had to learn how to create visuals. So if you're dealing with little, let's say primary students, it would take more work to create a lesson for students, all right, as opposed to secondary, because of course, they would learn a lot by visual, hearing, a lot of stimulation activity or project-based activities. So that is what I would say. Of course, we need to know what do the tools that we need to, of course, facilitate quality online learning. And of course, it begins with having the right equipment. So if you have a computer, does it have the right RAM to be able to run the type of speed and quality? What type of phone you're using? If you're using a tablet, if you're using an iPad, those things. As it pertains to the students, they have to be trained on how to, of course, use the technology, because when we talk about e-learning, there's two types of e-learning. You have synchronous e-learning, where both the learner and the instructor is at the same place at the same time. This could be facilitated online. And then you have asynchronous learning. This is where, of course, a lot of the teachers would have had to, of course, create a learning management system. Even if they didn't create it, they would have had to, of course, create discussions, emails, reading. So that, of course, would have facilitated for independent learning. And we know with primary and secondary, it's very difficult because, of course, they need to be guided, they need to be instructed. They have not reached that level of independent learning, and they were required to do a lot of independent learning now. All right, they were forced into, of course, learning independently without a teacher always being there to guide them on, of course, figuring out the answer, solving the problem. They now had to, of course, learn on their own or independently. So those are some things, of course, to take into consideration as well. And I know that some teachers as well would have had challenges with assessment. How now would we assess our students online? All right. So probably Elisha or Ms. Van Putten, of course, who would have been in that traditional setting, may be able to share a bit on how they would, of course, assess students in an online, because of course, being a blended learning classroom, we would have already developed the systems, but for teachers who are accustomed to that traditional approach, they would be better able to tell us how they solve that challenge.
Okay. Before I really, because of the constraints of time, I really want to touch base. So we have been talking about technology in the classroom. Where do we go from here? COVID forced us here. How do we move forward, right? So someone asked this question. At the same time, even if the internet and tech issues are resolved and the teachers remain in the same paradigm, what value is tech? Ms. Van Putten, I think you will be suited to answer this question. Should I repeat?
I heard it the first time. Thank you. And you know, the answer to that is fairly simple. We all need training. We all need training to learn this tech. And as teachers, as educators, we have to realize that nothing stays the same forever. Change is oftentimes painful. Alicia herself said that, you know, it was difficult initially for her to get into the online learning and whatnot. We have some parents who are reluctant. We have some teachers who are reluctant to move away from the traditional, we call it chalk and talk. And so we could have a beautiful internet system. Every student can have access to internet. Every student can have a computer, tablet, or laptop in their home. But if the educators, if the people who are assigned to teach these experiences are not properly trained, then all of those things would be for naught. We as educators have to understand we are all valuable, yes, but it starts with changing your mindset and understanding that for us to progress and move forward, we have to start thinking, looking forward, having vision. So the question is a very valid one. We can have the most beautiful internet system in, say, Maarten or wherever all over the world, but if we don't have qualified, properly trained people to disseminate this information to our future leaders, then it would be simply a waste of time. So it starts with us. It starts with changing your mindset, not getting stuck in the belief that your way is the way and you're never going to change, and being open to change, being open to receive new information so you can give that to the people you are charged with giving knowledge to.
Very good. Very good. I think that speaks for itself. There's another question. This person said they would love to hear the views of the speakers on outdated education model based on industrial age and the required changes needed to liberate us mentally to advance globally. Yes.
Sorry. Could you repeat that again?
Sure. So yeah. The question is, the person said, I would love to hear the views of the speakers on the outdated education model based on the industrial age and the required changes needed to liberate us mentally to advance globally.
Oh, wow. Well, the outdated teaching model is just that. It's outdated. And I think all of us here understand that, COVID-19 did push us into an e-learning online platform, but most educational systems were already making that shift. Most educational systems had almost eliminated the chalk and talk, or the chalk and the blackboard. So we were moving slowly in that direction. And I think I said it a little while ago when I said the change starts with us and having the mindset. So we have teachers who are, stuck in their ways, but you have to understand at some point you have to change your mindset so you can move forward. And how do you do that? You have to be willing to learn new ways of teaching. So when I became a teacher 2,700 years ago, there was the chalk, there was the blackboard, but I quickly realized that, if I needed to work smarter and not harder, I had to be open to accepting new things that could possibly make my job a little easier. And, if we accept the fact that, nothing is ever going to be 100% perfect. There are issues with e-learning, there are issues with online learning, there are issues with the people who are giving this information. But if we are open to learning new things, then we will continue to move forward no matter what. So 20 years from now, someone else is going to be having another discussion as to how education can progress from there. So we are constantly moving forward. We're no longer stuck in that type of classroom where, you know, you write on the blackboard and the children are quiet, and, you know, we are constantly changing. And that is the good thing about education. It's evolving, yes. Is it evolving quickly? No. Is the mindset of the persons, the educators, changing? Yes. Is it doing that quickly? No. Because, like I said previously, change is painful, but change will and must occur.
Kevin, what take from you having your blended classroom? How would you? I would ask the question again. Okay, I will read it again. I want to know because Ms. Van Putten at least is from a public education standpoint, but from you being a blended classroom standpoint, I will ask the question, right? What are your views on the outdated education model based on the industrial age, and what is required changes needed? What are the required changes needed to liberate us mentally to advance globally? So based on your day-to-day platform, how do you see we can advance from your platform, based on your platform?
So based on my blended learning, or what we'll call an orthodox move in education, it's driven by data. And of course, our data inform us as an institution what are the requirements we need to provide to our students. Remember, previously, before, the education was designed for the agrarian world. So it was really designed for factory workers. So of course, there were basic skills that, of course, the school system provided. So now that we live in an information or data-driven world, our pedagogy, and when I talk about pedagogy, the science behind teaching needs to change. All right, so there needs to be a paradigm shift. And as Ms. Van Putten said, you will have resistance. Change sometimes can be hard because it's something new that you're learning. It's something that you're not accustomed to, but it is necessary. And the only how it will be possible is with the change of the mindset. So when we started, an average of 3 years ago, we had a lot of resistance. It was new. We would have had a lot of obstacles, but now we're beginning to see the benefits of our new teaching model. And we always keeping in mind is that we want to prepare our students for the world of tomorrow, not the world of today or the world that our parents or even ourselves would have lived in. We see the advancement of technology. We basically live in a global village. Accessibility, in terms of technology, it's so accessible in terms of, okay, we can purchase things online, we can go on YouTube and stuff like that. So as it pertains to our approach is really data-driven. So based on the data that we acquire, we are then able, of course, to tailor our learning to suit the learning needs of the students, as well as prepare them for the future. So we are very futuristic in our thinking.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Ms. Van Putten, based on the collaboration, the camaraderie with teachers, how do you see with teachers? Because in order for all of this to happen, we need a very good, I don't want to say relationship with teachers, but a working relationship. And I forgot the word you used, right? But in order
Collegiality.
Can you repeat it, please?
Collegiality.
Exactly. So in order for us to move forward, I mean, we can talk about tech, we can talk about individual classrooms, but if there is no camaraderie with your colleagues, there is not a flow, there definitely can be a breakdown in the system. And how do you work together progressively? So Ms. Van Putten, I would like Ms. Van Putten to touch on that. And also Alicia, you can, after, I will be happy to hear Alicia's state of mind when it comes to the communication with with fellow teachers in the public school system?
You're speaking about a topic that's dear to my heart. It really and truly is. And I think I told you earlier this morning, I'm a teacher advocate. So for me, working with my colleagues is a pleasure. And as the school coach, you know, one of my key issues that I deal with, that I work with here, is building staff relations. I often do workshops, all with the intention of building staff relations, because you know, the people that you work with are also important factors in how far you want to progress in the education sector. If I'm happy to get up to go to work, that is a good thing, because oftentimes we downplay the role we have as colleagues in supporting each other. You know, we're teachers, we all feel the stress, and you know, sometimes when you enter a certain environment, you know, that environment will dictate very oftentimes how your day is going to proceed. And so, you know, as someone who has worked in previous environments that were not exactly healthy, that were not filled with collegiality, that everyone just went about and did their job, and, you know, they left and they went home afterwards, it says a lot, because students, children, whether they're primary school or secondary schools, they pick up on these things. And oftentimes we don't give students, the children, we don't give them credit for the things that they do. They will often play, they know this particular teacher or educator isn't on good terms with this other one, and so they can often play that off. But if you have a level of collegiality that is encouraged by your school manager, then by its very nature, that will seep into your classroom, because you know you have the support of your colleagues, no matter what it is that you do in the classroom, what you're teaching in the classroom. And that too is something that will go a long way in all of us being proponents of the future of education. Where do we want to see education? And like I told you earlier this morning, it has to start with us and our relationship with each other. I cannot tell you how to clean your house if my house is not clean. All right? So the relationship that we have with our working husbands and wives, because really and truly that's what they are. You know, you spend more time with the people you work with than your own family. And so the relationship that we have with each other in the work environment goes a very, very long way into how you want your institution to be seen. You want, when a stranger enters your institution, that they can feel the vibe. And we all feel vibes when we enter a building. When colleagues speak to each other, we feel that vibe, whether it's a good vibe or a bad vibe. And our students are especially sensitive to that, and they pick up on it right away. And so for me, I'm a huge proponent of staff relations. You know, if I'm happy to go to work, it's because I'm happy to see my colleagues. All now I'm still at work, and I'm happy to be here. And you know, if you're sad to leave, it's because you can actually talk and hang out with your colleagues after work. And that is also something that is a positive, because in the end, it's going to affect the students. If I have a good experience with my colleague, or if I just need a little bit of support in the staff room, and I get that support from my colleague, I go back into the classroom, and by extension, that positivity that I gained from my colleagues, I give it to my students. And I often say there are a lot of programs out there to support our students, but really and truly they need to think about support for teachers and educators as well, because we have stress, we have issues, we oftentimes need someone to talk to, and you know, sometimes the people that we need to talk to are the people that we work with, you know, and I want to be able to talk to somebody without me worrying that person spreads my business all over my workplace. So for me, staff relations, collegiality is extremely important moving forward, you know? So yeah, that's. I don't want to go on about it, but yes, I feel very strongly about that.
But I do agree with you. I do agree with you entirely, because if we want education to be progressive, if we are talking about advancement, we cannot only look at the systems. We cannot just look at technology. But if there is no report, if there's no no communication, you know, no flow of, I don't want to say friendship, you know, but friendship between teachers.
Friendship. It is friendship. You make friends on the job. I have friends. You know, when I started working at Academy, I made some friends 25 years ago, and we're still friends to this day, even though we no longer work together.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm talking about, you know?
Yeah. And it is necessary. It is necessary because when you're able to communicate freely with each other, then you can discuss ideas, you can discuss challenges. You have a freedom, a sense of freedom to say, hey, you know what? I don't know, guide me. Like right now, there's challenges. Some teachers are challenged to learn this new Zoom or Google Classroom. So when we have that flow and that ease, you don't feel like, oh my God, this person is looking down on me. And to add to all of that, we all have our added stress. Teachers do have their stress at home. So if you can have someone to a bit offset you in a nice environment, comfortable environment, it really, really aids to the entire situation. Before Alicia, I had Alicia tap based on that. Based on Facebook right now, we're having some comments. We have Anita Facey. She said, there is a need to develop and strengthen the communities to practice in our learning environments. So, you know, we can say that she is in standing accord to what we're saying as well. And Alicia, you're in the public system as well. What is that camaraderie like with you and colleagues? How is that? And you don't have to highlight, maybe give a specific situation, but in cases where there's a breakdown in communication, how does the rippling effect affect the overall system, the flow in the school, in the classroom?
Well, first of all, everyone wants to work in a positive, a positive working environment. And in order for you to achieve a positive or a healthy working environment, it starts with the staff. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we should try and include more teamwork sessions and activities to kind of build that confidence amongst each other, to feel comfortable with each other. So like Miss Van Putten mentioned, so that we are comfortable with telling each other, what is going on, in our personal life or what's going on in the classroom. We have to be comfortable. But in order to be comfortable, we have to have these sessions in place to kind of get that out of our staff members. Mm-hmm. For me, every institution has their ups and downs in terms of the communication amongst their co-workers. But I think my environment is extremely healthy. Can we do better in terms of helping each other? Yes, but I think it's also a balance. As much as I want to help my co-worker, I am, struggling with my workload. So I think it's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. We have to help each other. And once we help each other, then of course, it's going to reflect in the positive environment that we work in.
So very good. Kevin, again, your structure is different. You're a blend of classroom and online. What is the relationship with you, your colleagues, your other teachers? What is that relationship like, and how do you maintain that flow?
As Alicia and Ms. Van Putten would have also made mention, it's about building good relation. All right, we want to build good relationship with the people who we see every day, who we interact, because based on the relationship that we share with them, it too can be impacted on the students. So if we share, the students can identify if there is discord between the teachers. Mm-hmm. They can identify it. So we want to develop good relationship with each other. So of course, all our teachers are not from Trinidad and Tobago. We do have teachers from Antigua, Barbados, Jamaica. All right, so we have a very diverse teachers population. So of course, from time to time, we may have activities with our teachers. The teachers who are in Trinidad, we have, of course, face-to-face interaction from time to time. We will have our meeting, team building exercise. Also, as well on Zoom, we will also have team building exercise. And one of the things that we need to understand is that teaching at times could become very stressful. So managing a classroom, dealing with behavioral issues is so different because you have different personalities. It's the same with your teaching staff. It's the same with your teaching staff. Everyone has different personalities, so you want to ensure that you're managing each person's expectations carefully. All right. And one of the ways is by listening. So I try to listen as the program manager. I try to listen to some of the challenges, issues that my teachers may have. And of course, we will discuss, we will deliberate, we will negotiate as to what is the best solution. All right. So those are things that you must take into consideration. And what I always advise, because we have so many different teachers with different cultural experiences, Trinidad cultural experience as opposed to Barbados will be different. We teach students from throughout the Caribbean. So of course, the experience is so different. Of course, so many different personalities. So what we do is that we want to incorporate what we call a mental health aspect. So it's something new that we're going to incorporate into our team building exercise, where of course we have a guidance counselor or a psychologist come and work with our teachers in terms of going through little activities they can do to manage stress. Because sometimes working, it could become really, really stressful. And sometimes you would want to know, why did this teacher react the way that the teacher react? But it could just be because of the demands of teaching. All right. So communication is key to building good relationship with our teachers. And not just communication, but effective communication, asking the right questions to the teachers, and of course, looking at solutions, being a very, I try to be a very democratic leader, very open to opinions and suggestions. You cannot be an authoritarian leader if you want to have an effective staff. You have to be open to opinions and suggestions, because COVID-19 would allow us to be very open. We had to be open to the suggestions and opinions shared. So that's my take in terms of that aspect as it pertains to relationship. We want to build good relationship with the people that we see every day.
Very good. And what do you all each think, or anyone can answer this question? How do we incorporate parents in this good relationship? You know, because we are teaching, you're teaching their children, and now, as I mentioned earlier, and we all spoke about earlier, parents now see the need to be involved, or I would hope that they are not just waiting for school to reopen in St. Martin in August and the British Caribbean islands in September to, oh my God, let me hurry, let them go back. But what would you like to see moving forward in terms of the engagement with parents and teachers? Anyone can answer. Nobody? Ms.
Well,
Van Putten?
I think
Elisa?
that communication with parents and teachers should start from the onset, and constant communication, because what tends to happen is at the beginning, okay, parents come, they drop off their child, and teachers or parents don't enforce the constant communication amongst each other. So I think it has to be from the onset. I think that a program should be in place, whether it's consistent teacher parent conventions or meetings, whatever we call it, meetings. It must be on a consistent basis, not just when it's time to pick up report card or at the end of the school year. I think it should happen, let's say, once every 2 months. I think there has to be some sort of consistency in terms of you're communicating with what the child is going through, whether it's academics, social, whatever it is. We must maintain a constant communication, and that's the only way I think parents will become more involved. Because what happens, and I must say this was something that I dealt with when I started out. I thought that I could deal with a child once the child is in my setting. I never got my parents involved in whatever was happening in the classroom. But I tend to realize that was not working anymore. And by me having constant communications with my parents and having them come into the classroom, sit and see how the child is functioning in the classroom, I saw a tremendous change in my students. And I saw an improvement in the involvement of parents in the classroom as well. So I think it should start from the onset, and it should be consistent.
Kevin.
Can I just add to that?
Putten.
I think also in our society, parents need to realize that they are stakeholders in their children's education, that they can effect change. They can effect change to such an extent that, you know, they can affect certain policies, certain education policies, but they have to be willing to be a part of the discussion so that change can actually happen. And too often we see parents complain only after they receive a grade. Too often we see parents who are not engaged at all, don't know the name of their children's teacher, don't know what classroom their child is in, don't know anything. And, you know, I put that on the parents. Parents need to become engaged. They need to become invested in their children's education. And once they do that, all of us will benefit because we are all stakeholders here, because we are right now working on the future generation. And parents need to realize you can't just drop your child off at the school and then that's it. You know, they have to be invested. And I think this whole thing with COVID-19 has really put a spotlight on parental involvement in their children's educational lives. So that is my take on it.
I entirely agree with that. I strongly believe parents should have the interest in wanting to know who their children teachers are, what their interaction have, even if they cannot come to the classroom, pick up the phone and call ever so often. How is my child doing? What is their behavior pattern? Because you will find, maybe even with parents who won't even see this, but I believe teachers will be able to, are able to observe a child even more, because something may be happening at home, for instance, and that child may start to have a behavioral problem. The parents at home would not see it, but because when the child is in school, the teacher who is there with him or her daily, they're able to observe the behavior pattern, the change of it, you know. So I think that's where was one area where I believe there should be even more engagement with teachers and parents. Kevin, with you having the online platform, how do you engage with your students' parents? How is that?
So one of the ways that I engage with the parents, of course, is before they even join our institution, we always let them know what is required of them, because in the learning process, the parents also as well play a vital role, and they need to understand the role they play as a parent in the education process of their child. So one of the things that I did was to create a WhatsApp group. And in that WhatsApp group, I, of course, would keep the parents updated. Any type of change, anything that may occur that isn't a significant change that I may need to, of course, pick up the phone and call the parents, or have the teachers call the parents, the WhatsApp group will have them informed. So any sort of changes, any sort of support that students will need, any challenges, so they themselves would see the challenge that we would have in the classroom with the students. So one of the challenge automatically in an online classroom is students' attention span. All right, we cannot have an online class for 2 hours. We cannot have an online class for 1 hour. All right, maximum should be 45 minutes. All right, we have to take into consideration the students' focus. The other aspect is, of course, informing the parents that they're home. When you're home, when we think of home, we think of a relaxed place, a place for entertainment, and we do a bit of recreational activity at home. So now I am forced to now make home school. So the students have their psychological challenges. We need the parents to be aware of it, because what we realize, of course, in COVID, we would have realized this challenge even greater. I would have had to call students, hi, good morning, you have a class for 9 a.m. So, or they may say, if it's, you know, one of our female teachers, miss, I'm tired, I didn't realize. Because of course, home is that place to relax, and you know, it's that place to be with your family. it's not, they don't see it as a place like a school. So we had to let parents know what our schedule was. So of course, in Trinidad, just like with most Caribbean islands, of course, we have begun working, and some parents, of course, would have worked in what we call an essential job. So of course, they would have had to work as regular. All right. So of course, they knowing the schedule, we would have prompted them to wake up your child, have breakfast with them, get them prepared. So when it was time for the online class, of course, our teachers send like a 10 minutes or 15 minutes prompt. So they would get these prompts. Okay, they will also get what is required for today's class. So they're not coming unprepared. As the educator, you need to be in control of your classroom. So of course, this is how we would have communicated with our parents, and we continuously. So every time we're having an event, we would share it. Some of the challenges we had, of course, is sometimes you give students, as Ms. Van Putten said, material work to do. And of course, if you, depending on the platform that you have, you can track how much time the student would have logged in. You could also track how much time they spent, of course, reading the material. Some students even, of course, would have put on their recording and they would have turned off their cameras and they would have moved. So to continuously keep that engagement, what I would have had to do as teachers, we would have had Daniel, so what do you think? And of course, ask, okay, guys, so what I would have had to do, the next 5 questions, Daniel, based on the material, because what we do is we prepare them the day before or weeks before so that they would know what material. So of course, I would say, Nathaniel, you will answer the first 5 questions. All right, so as we read through the material, you will answer the first 5 questions. So we actually began to give them tasks to do. So it was very difficult for them to move from that computer. So you can't just be giving direct instructions. You now have to, of course, guide the learning and give them tasks to do in this new environment. And the parents had to be aware. So of course, I would have sent them the weekly, as this is how your students perform. These are the students who attended. So you would have had parents saying, but how my child did not attend? And I said, well, I don't know, but this is the data that was provided by the teachers. So what we did is that, of course, we monitored and evaluated to ensure the teachers were doing what they ought to do by attending the classes as well as the students. So sometimes if a teacher was running late, and of course they did not attend, a student might have popped up in the student group chat, a teacher is not there. And of course that would have alerted us in cases where they did not communicate. Okay. So of course we had, as we realized the challenge, we of course would have learned the solution as time moved forward. But again, the parents must be actively involved. And when I mean actively involved, just being aware of, okay, the time schedule, what subjects the child may have on a particular day, if they have any exam or assessment, did the child do it? So these are the questions we want the parents to ask their child. Because you don't want a child coming to the classroom or not attending the classroom and the parent is not aware of what's happening. So that's very important.
Very, very good. Very, very good. Perla Romley, because we're about to wrap up, but Perla Romley, she commented saying, parents need to be allowed in the classroom. We need to have a relationship with our teachers. Aren't parents allowed in the classroom?
Well, Perla, because I just finished teaching her son, and she's I wish all my parents were like her. And indeed, I will allow parents to drop in unexpectedly, because it is that unexpected factor that scares their children. And she did drop into my class once, and they were doing a test, and I invited her, come on in, sit down. And her son, who was sleeping, woke right up when she entered. So indeed.
Very good, very good. My mother did that. Mommy did that. She would just pop up at our school unannounced for her. She wanted to see what you were doing when they weren't around. So she would just show up and spend a few hours there, engage with the teacher.
Yes.
So I'm accustomed to that, and I think it's very necessary. Alicia, you mentioned something. You said when you did the Zoom, right? There were students, there were times where only 5 students would log in. And I don't remember exactly who requested an assessment you had to do a reporting of how many students logged in. And can you share a little bit of that, please? Because the reason why is we can only have a discussion, and educators can only do what they're supposed to do, but they're different. Everything is compartmentalized. Everyone has a responsibility. And when that chain of responsibility falters, when it breaks at some point, the intent that is there to be created will not happen because someone dropped the ball. So can you just highlight briefly, and these are for persons in government, persons in higher structures, you too have a responsibility. The teachers can only do so much, but in order for us to effect change, we need to have persons, decision makers, policy makers, to be able to be responsive in the process as well.
Well, Keoma, I don't use Zoom. I use Seesaw. Public education, we are encouraged. I'm not sure if it's mandatory, but we are encouraged to use Seesaw. What I love about Seesaw is that we can upload our work, we can record our instructions to the students. They're able to hear us. They're able to send videos if they feel like. So I really love Seesaw. Unfortunately, I had about 5 students who logged on to Seesaw on a constant basis. What happened is, of course, the parents have a part to play as well. Like we all mentioned, everyone has their part to play. The school, the teacher, parents, students, government, you name it. Everyone has their part to play in order for us to reach our common goal, which is to educate and ensure that our students are equipped with the tools needed to conduct such. So unfortunately, only 5 students came on, and of course we have to report, you know, how many students report how many students logged on. We have to show why they did not log on. So we have to have constant communication with the parents. And most parents indicated that I don't have internet access. I don't have an electronic device. And as much as it's depressing, it is reality, and it's so much a teacher can do. We can, like Miss Van Putten mentioned, send the work on WhatsApp, but you know that's also a conflict as well. So it's a lot for us to do in order to get up to par to where we want to be technology wise, but we're gonna get there. Like Miss Van Putten mentioned, change must happen, and everyone has to put their best foot forward for us to reach that goal.
I agree. I am enjoying this conversation, and from the comments I see on Facebook, everyone seems to be so engaged and have what not to say. Elisa, you have a shout out from Priya, Monsieur. I see Sharika Higgs and Perla Rumley, Alicia Macpherson. Alicia Macpherson is actually my childhood friend from Ghana. We know each other since we were 4 years old. And Abigail Williams as well. So we have like 70 comments so far. So what I will do after we were off, I would encourage everyone to just drop in whenever you can and just engage with persons, answer their questions or so. But you know, moving forward, Chico is of course. But this platform, this conversation, I reside in St. Maarten. We have 2 persons from St. Maarten. Kevin who's in Trinidad. The intent for these conversations is not just to be local, but to be regional and international. Because I'm pretty sure, I'm confident to say what the struggles we face, the triumphs we experience as well, it's not only concentrated in our environment, in our home, but it radiates throughout. And with us having more open conversations, we're able to discuss our challenges, we're able to learn from each other, and we're able to see together what solutions can we come up with. Who would have thought today we received an article with a young lady in Dominica who has challenges with her internet connection, and now she too is calling out on our internet providers. We too have to do the same across the region. Who is responsible for that? You see? So in closing, I would like to ask 2 questions. How do you see, or what would you like to see in education moving forward, the advancement of education? Each person. Ms. Van Putten.
Okay, I will go first because after I make my comment, please excuse, I'm going to have to leave.
Okay.
But what would I like to see moving forward? I would like to see more parental involvement. I would like to see more respect and understanding of the job of a teacher and educator. I would like to see minds open up to accept the fact that once you decide to go into the education field, it's not easy. I would like to see more funds allocated so that we can have all these wonderful plans that we discussed, online learning, e-learning, every student having a tablet. I would like to see more of that. I would like to see the education buildings in St. Maarten properly fixed and equipped to allow learning, physical learning, as well as online learning. And I would like to see a community spirit where education is concerned. So it's not just, it shouldn't be education shouldn't be an island where only certain people who work on that island know what's going on. We should all be involved in the learning of our future leaders, because the fact of the matter is we're not going to be here forever, and we have to have a legacy to leave behind. But to do that, it starts in here. We have to change our mindset, and we have to be open to understand that, you know, we're not going to be here forever. We're not going to be in power forever. This is not going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever. And things will never stay the same. They cannot stay the same. Things must change. And so those are the things that I would like to see moving forward. Yes, I know I'm being idealistic. Yes, I know I'm asking a lot, but the fact of the matter is it can be accomplished. Nothing is ever going to be 100%. It can be accomplished. And, you know, if we could all work together with that one goal in mind to make our education not just structure or infrastructure, you know, but to make education a priority in our community, then, only then we will see the kind of results that we're expecting, you know? And I'm not gonna say it starts from the top down, you know? We have to start from the bottom and work our way up, because the people at the top are the ones we educated. And they also have to set that standard, and they also have to have that mindset, that vision, that they want to leave a legacy behind. And how do you leave that legacy behind? By educating and by making sure our educational facilities are in order. So so if you guys will excuse me, I will excuse myself from this conversation. It's been wonderful talking with you. Thank you, Keoma, for having me on. And we will certainly talk again soon. So thank you so much. I really do have to go.
Thank you so much, Ms. Van Putten. We will catch up. Thank you. Bye-bye. Everyone say bye to Ms. Van Putten.
Bye.
Alicia, same question to you. Moving forward, what would you like to see happen in terms of education? Not just in your classroom, but just holistically, St. Maarten wise, the regional wise. What would you like to see?
In addition to what Ms. Van Putten mentioned, I would like to see more sessions for parents and teachers and students coming together to work along with each other to build that that confidence amongst them. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see more technology programs in place for teachers to attend free of charge.
Mm-hmm.
I would want our parents, our teachers to advance technology-wise. We have to ensure that we provide the resources and try our best to, if it's not free, at least affordable for teachers to attend. We are all focusing on the common goal, which is to make our world a better place and to educate our young leaders. And in order for us to do that, we should have the resources and tools in place to do such. In terms of, I'm going to go back to teachers, I'm going to go back into my classroom. What I would like to see is more materials for our teachers so that we can conduct our teaching in the classroom without us going and begging every time. I'm a teacher, I beg all the time for materials. That has been me from the time I started. And the energy that I put into requesting for materials, that same energy I can put into my classroom. So I think once our superiors provide us with the tools needed, I think that education can be, it can reach to another level, and that energy can go into the teaching process. I also want to see, for my country in particular, that whichever school you attend, you get the equal treatment, the equal level of education, whether you go to Orania or Prince Alexander or the Mac School or Learning Unlimited. I don't want it to seem as if, they're like you have to be a certain type of child to go to that school. I want us to have the equal treatment in our country. And once we get that, I think we're going to advance, and we're going to advance quickly. But all entities need to do their part, from the teacher down to the internet service provider, to our government officials, our parents. I think once everyone understands their role to play in the advancement of education in our country, we're going to reach places.
Very good. Anita Facey, before Kevin, Anita Facey said, I mean, the comments I won't like, the comments are very, very good. Anita Facey said, there needs to be more democratic partnership between private sector and the educational institution in order to develop the cognitive gene pool of the countries within the region. You see, so we're getting very good feedback. Kevin, for you, how would you see, especially based on your platform, what would you like to see moving forward in terms of education? And with you focus on a regional level, as well.
So just to add to what Elisa and Ms. Van Putten would have shared, I want to see teachers educate, inspire, and motivate more. I think those things are very, very important to incorporate in the classroom. Of course, our policies, a lot of our educational policies within the Caribbean region is outdated. So our policies have to be, of course, changed in order to facilitate the type of classroom experience we would like our students to experience. So as Elisa said, because of lack of funding, all right, there will be lack of resources. And of course, the quality will, of course, be reduced, as opposed to, let's say, a private or prestigious schools within our respective islands that may have the available funding and resources. They themselves will be able to provide a way higher quality experience in the classroom, as opposed to a school that is, of course, deprived from these resources. So that is very, very important. Another area that I would like to see improve is our way of assessment. We have to move away from assessing our students based on a test. All right? Not everyone's learning curve is really good at remembering information. Someone may be able to, of course, be assessed orally. So I may be able to ask a child to describe something for me written, and they may have a little challenges because they have not learned that skill efficiently enough. All right, all of us, in terms of writing, listening, or however we express ourselves in the respective language, some persons may be stronger in certain skills. So Keoma, if you're stronger in writing, you may be able to express yourself better in wording. So we may read someone's article and be, wow, we were amazed by what they wrote. But then when we hear them speak, we may be a bit surprised because, again, they're not great at expressing themselves orally. So I think we need to look at diversifying the way we assess our students, because it comes like, Keoma, I take a fish and a monkey, and I tell the monkey, okay, we're gonna have a race. The monkey will not be in his environment if I put him in the sea, all right? So he will feel so displaced, but if I put him in the right environment, he may be able to excel, all right? So it's the same thing with students. Sometimes we put them in this environment, assess them, and of course, they have challenges, but if we put them in a different environment that they are able to flourish, we would be like, wow, we never expected that this student knows so much, because we only assess them through one means. So that will be basically what I would hope to see in our education, and of course, education system that is driven by data and research. Very important.
Yes, I agree with you. Very much data and research, because across the Caribbean, we have an issue with data. There is outdated data. We have no clue how things are improving, or what the changes are over time. So data comes into play very much so. The last thing is, Alicia, I know you're in school. Well, I know you're in public school. Kevin, I know what you do. You have a private school. But what can the community do to support you all in any way possible? What, maybe you have an afternoon school, whatever it is. How can we, as the viewers, as a community, regional, local, what can we do to support you even more? Alicia.
You know, I accept anything.
Yeah, but you have to say, what is it, especially with a classroom setting, like what is it that you would need that the community can be of service to you with?
Well, teachers, we're always in need. We're always in need of materials. We're always in need. Even moving forward to, technology-wise, donations of laptops, donations of desktops, anything, donations of whether you feel like even paying for a teacher's internet access, whatever you think that you can contribute to the educational system, we accept any donations moving forward. But I know in particular, materials is something that we are always in need of. Pencils, pens, calculators, writing books, rulers, erasers, sharpeners, galore. We are always in need of these materials. So we are open to any donations moving forward. But I want to take this opportunity though, Keoma, to congratulate every educator under the sound of my voice. We have done a phenomenal job. Whether you think you've done 20%, you've done something. You have done something to educate your students, and you must give yourself a pat on the back because you did all you could have done. And I must congratulate them. I also want to congratulate parents because I know it was not easy for them, but they sacrificed what they had to sacrifice to ensure they did their part. We all can do better, but we have to congratulate each other and commend each other for the work that we've done. This is something new to all of us, even to our officials. It's new. And as much as we want for them we expect more of them. What is more? What is more? We are all faced with this issue, but with communication and with an open mind as to how we can get better, I think that this country and this world will be a better place. But again, we all have our part to play. We have to understand that, and we have to ensure that we do our part, in this whole crisis. That's just all that I have to say on that topic.
I agree with you, Alicia, very much. So for persons who are viewing, businesses especially, Alicia said, she said what they need is material. So whatever you can do, every bit is good enough. Don't think that one book is not good enough. Every bit is good enough, yeah? So Kevin, how can we support you? I know you have a regional program happening right now for persons who are prepared to do CXC. Whatever else we can do as a community or a local community, regional community, let us know how we can support you. Let us know how we can engage even more with what you're doing and learn even more about what you're doing.
Okay, great. So I'm actually happy that you asked that pertinent question because together we stand divided, we fall. So of course we need everyone, all stakeholders are important, and the community as well plays an important role in supporting our initiative as educators. So the Academy of Higher Education, what we realize is that CXC is in July and a lot of students will not have the same opportunities in each island. All right, we know that each student, their opportunities would be different, and we began offering free CSEC examination preparation workshop for over 20 subjects. So what we were asking the community is educators, teachers, instructional designers, whatever you choose to call yourself, once you ensure learning is happening in the respective CSEC subject, we were asking persons throughout the Caribbean to assist us with providing the service of teaching students for these workshops. These workshops are free of charge, and so far we have had persons from Antigua, Jamaica, Belize, Grenada, St. Kitts Nevis, all right, who have been a part of the workshop. So if in St. Maarten there's anyone who will be willing to join on to be a part of our CSEC exam preparation workshop for students who are writing exams in July 2020, you can message Keoma, and of course she can redirect you to our page and we can get you set up. So we have been helping students. We have been able, since we started the first week of June, we have been able to help over 1,000 students throughout the Caribbean. And we want to continue until the end of exam for them.
Very good, Kevin, very good. So to Kevin and Alicia, this was a phenomenal discussion, very, very necessary, very needed. And I know moving forward, it brings even more perspective to us. It brings even more perspective to the conversation of education, how education was impacted during COVID. What was it like before COVID? How it was impacted during COVID, and what do we need to move forward? Not just move forward on the same level, but move forward in a higher, more advanced level. So thank you guys for being a part of this conversation. Thank you for all you have done, all you continue to do, your decisions to become educator. Not everyone has that gift. I personally do not have that gift. So I must commend each and every one of you. Ms. Van Putten is no longer here, but I want to commend Ms. Van Putten as well. She taught me in high school. Alicia, when I went to school together, Kevin and I, you know what we do. And there are so many teachers, not just in St. Maarten, but throughout the region. We all play a major role, not only in the lives of our students, but also in the lives of persons who they interact. Because when you teach one, whatever you teach that person, they share that knowledge with someone else. So we're like pebbles. Well, I say we, I speak in we's, but teachers are like pebbles. When they teach one person, the knowledge ripples across the room or across the globe, because you have absolutely no idea. Elisa, think about it. Who would have thought we would have been here these years after having a conversation with Ms. Van Putten? You know what I mean? So thank you so much for all you do, all you will continue to do. And for everyone who hear what Ms. Van Putten said, what the needs are, what Alicia's needs are in terms of the public education, and for Kevin, for persons who are currently preparing for CXC, you can get in contact with him on Facebook directly. It's Kevin Charles, or you can get in contact with me, and then we can, make that connection possible. We're able to utilize, we don't have to be an island, but we are able to tap into the resources that are available to us and for us. And this is one very, very good opportunity. I would advise not only persons in St. Maarten, but persons throughout the region as well. I'm seeing people in Guyana who is viewing, people in Antigua who is viewing, people in Dominica, persons who are in England, they're all viewing right now. So this is an opportunity to tap into these resources and make the most out of it. Guys, thank you so much to our viewers. Thank you so much for viewing. Thank you for commenting. We will dive into the comments as soon as we're off here. Give me like 15, 20 minutes, right? I will dive into the comments after, but thank you guys so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend.